Hi guys, it's Mark Zickery, Mr. Sci-Fi, but right now I'm talking as Mr. Politics because I separate the two for the good of all of my audience and the world in general. But I felt that I needed to do a Mr. Politics commentary today because of what's been going on in Israel and Palestine and Gaza and so forth. Of course, what Hamas did was a totally nightmarish crime against humanity. It was indefensible. But I think that what people often forget to do when there's an act of terrorism is they forget to say, well, what have the offending parties, what response do they want? How are they using acts of violence to further their goals? I thought this was the problem with 9/11 when the two planes hit the towers, we immediately jumped in with the most violent and taxing thing we could do, which is launch two full wars. Whereas if it had been viewed as a crime, where the people who committed the crime needed to be held directly responsible, then we could have viewed it as a police action, and the world would have been on our side, and we wouldn't have had 20 years of war that led to what ultimately? Injuries, deaths, loss of revenue, all of that stuff. And what did we accomplish? What did we leave behind? So, but this is what Osama bin Laden clearly wanted, something that would turn hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Muslims against America, against the West, something that would polarize and create more and more horror and violence, and he succeeded in his aim. So, but people don't often think about this thing. So, now we get to the Hamas massacre. What did they want? Well, clearly they wanted to do something so horrendous that the Israelis would retaliate with force, and there would be more deaths, more children killed, more women killed, more innocents killed, their world shattered. And again, this would be like a recruiting campaign for Hamas. It would make people endlessly intent on vengeance. So, where does that leave us? Well, first of all, let's be clear. One atrocity never justifies another, okay? And we have to say no to violence, because violence is the enemy. Obviously, the perpetrators of the horrible massacre, they are criminals, they are murderers. They need to be apprehended. They need to be brought to justice, just as Eichmann was. Adolf Eichmann, if you recall. The Israelis got him, and that was justice. But had they gone into Argentina and murdered his family, all the families that knew him, families that didn't know him, just kind of pummeled the whole country and left thousands dead, this would not have been viewed as appropriate or just. So, what is the answer then? It's very hard to gauge, but clearly asking 1 million people to leave their homes and relocate, clearly turning off water, food, fuel, this is not the way to treat other human beings. So I hope that there's a more measured response. I hope that we can find some way for this not to be a war that lasts years and decades. I think that we have to view everyone on each side as human beings. Now that obviously includes each side saying that the other has a right to live, has a right to exist, has a right to a good life with hope in it. But these are negotiations. You have to first of all believe that peace is possible, to believe that peace is inevitable. And so that's sort of my thoughts on all of this stuff. I think that we must be warriors for peace, and that does not mean letting atrocity go unpunished, but it does mean letting atrocity punish those who committed it and not those who are merely adjacent to it. I'm sure there's a lot of different opinions on this, but of course I speak as a Jewish person. I speak as someone whose family was wiped out by the Holocaust. I speak as someone who would not be here if my grandfather had not moved to America after World War I. my mother would be dead, my grandmother would be dead, my grandfather would be dead, etc., etc., etc. And instead of just a lot of relatives I'll never have the chance to meet. But, and also Elaine, my wife, lived a year in Israel. And so, again, you have to recognize, when I see a photo of a murdered child, that child could be Jewish, that child could be Palestinian. It's a child, it's a human being, as are hostages, as are the women and children and men fleeing for their lives right now and living in fear. We have to be more human and more humane than that. We have to be more compassionate, and compassion does not have a borderline ever. And that's about it for now, guys. Talk to you soon.